CIY, how we doing? Good? Hey, I appreciate that. It's good to see you guys here. Man, final night, but we're going to finish strong. Somebody say finish strong. Oh, I like that. I love the energy. There we go. So we're going to finish strong, and I want to tell you, thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity. A small part of what God is doing here is CIY. Speaking of that, can we shout out the CIY team real quick? From the front to the back. From the front to the back, they've done an incredible job, and we're so grateful. There's so much work, so much prayer, so much preparation that goes into what we get to be a part of, so we're so grateful for that. Also, we got to shout out, if you're a youth pastor, youth leader, you drove here, I need you to stand up real quick. I need you to stand up. Come on. Come on. Come on. Help me out. MVP, MVP, MVP. There we go. One more time, y'all give it up for your leaders right there, pastors. I'm telling you what, you do not know how much they've been praying for you and all that goes into this. And we want to tell you thank you. For some of you, you're here, you took vacation to be here because you believe that God is going to show up in a big way in these students' life, and they're going to be able to broadcast the message that we're talking about, and we've been talking about this entire week. And so, yes, that's a shout out to you as students. Thank you for being here, and that's my prayer and my hope is that you guys leave here proclaiming the broadcast as you are bloomed the name of Jesus Christ. And so we're going to dive into the message. If you have your Bibles, hopefully you could turn to Luke chapter 10. Hopefully you're going to be keeping notes. As I get into my message, I'm going to start like this. I'm ready to work, so go ahead and clock me in. You know the team, so go ahead and chalk the win. I'm sticking by Christ's side like Stimpy and Ren. Did you hear what I said? I can say it again. The dangerous with a gun, man, give me a pen. While they talk about a 9, he's saving 10. No fear like Daniel, asleep in his den. It's like cashback warranty, there is no risk. You check my frame, I was built for this. Ask Rick Warren, I got a purpose in this. I'm about to spit for these cats that need to be new. I'm about to spit the name so much you thought it was Clue. I wear the bracelet, I got to do what he do. Anything less than that is just as worthless. Sell my soul, nah, it just ain't worth it. Instead of hide, I'd rather be his faithful servant. You guys didn't know I was going to... Y'all didn't know I was going to rap. I'm rapping the whole time. No, I'm just kidding. You're like, all right, here we go, I'm ready. No, but I want to tell you this. My family, we love hip-hop. We grew up on hip-hop. We love it. And my boys, I have a picture of Jude the Dude right here. So Jude is a big hip-hop fan. Same thing I grew up on. Listen to Lecrae, listen to Andy Mineo. Yeah, there we go. NF, that's who Jude loves. He loves all the types of hip-hop. But I'm telling you what, somehow this was a day that I actually got to go to his school, and it's crazy. He'll turn on Andy Mineo, You Can't Stop Me, and then we're playing the song Head, Shoulders, Knees, and Toes. And I'm like, how'd you go from that, man? Like, we need like a remix or something. Maybe I'll work on that for next time. But as I was digging and I was thinking about this message, man, that song kept playing in my head, and it probably only played one time, but you know that song that just keeps playing in your head, and it gets stuck in your head, and that was the song. And so here's what I want you to do. I am going to talk about that, but I want to put that on the shelf. So I need y'all to go like this and just put it on the shelf for me. There we go. There we go. Just put it on the shelf for a second, and then we're going to talk about the Good Samaritan. How many of you have heard about the Good Samaritan before? We've heard this story over and over. You may have heard this term before, and this term may be something like a stranger that does something for someone else, a nice, kind act, right? That's what you have probably heard. We've heard that. There's actually, whether you're a believer in Christ or not, people have used this term. There's actually a law out there that protects somebody, that if you're helping someone, there's a Good Samaritan law. And again, we've heard this, we've said this, and we probably have been impacted by this statement more than we know. And as I was thinking about that, I was thinking about where I live right now. So we just moved to Kansas City, and we live in this house. It's in a cul-de-sac. I know I don't get any street cred for that, but it's okay. So we live in this cul-de-sac. So we just moved there, and this is different than anything that I ever grew up with. It's crazy. So day one, someone knocked on our door and they gave us cookies. I don't know about you, but I only seen that on movies. I wasn't expecting that. So they gave us cookies on day one. And then after that, somebody came and said, hey, I noticed that your passenger front tire is a little low. Do you want me to put some air in that? And I was like, man, what kind of neighborhood is that? And then my next neighbor, he was like, hey, we had some extra mulch. Can we put that in there? I was like, what are you mulch? What are you talking about? And then somebody else was like, hey, your garage door was up. I just wanted to see how you guys were doing. And I was like, man, this is weird because this all happened in like 30 minutes. I'm just kidding. It happened over the last 6 months or so that we were there. But I remember talking to someone about it, and they said that same phrase. They said, man, it's like you got a good neighborhood. It's like the Good Samaritan. But as I think about this story and I think about what Jesus has called us to do and what's happening here is much more than anything I just said. It's much more than us being nice. It's much more than that. These are all good things, and I'm actually glad that the world may see it as that, but there's much more depth to what we're talking about. So we're going to dive into this. I'm going to go ahead and read through it. We're going to pick it up on the screen, but I'm going to give you a little bit of a backstory before I read, and I'm going to start at verse 25, so if you want to get ready for that. But a little bit of backstory, if I can, is that there's a battle that's about to happen. There's a battle. Somebody say battle. There's a battle that's about to happen. I heard there's a lot of people from Indiana here. Is that true? Okay. So a battle like it would be like the Colts versus the Jaguars. Is that a good battle? Okay. All right, so any NBA fans here? Any NBA? Okay. So it would be like, Stephen Curry shooting threes versus Shaq, okay? You'd be like, what? What's going on? Shaq would take it? Okay. You got to watch more hoops, man. I'm telling you, man. So imagine that, and what I'm saying, and if you get the references, those aren't really battles, but that was what's happening here, is that this guy wanted to battle Jesus, but it wasn't really going to be a battle, but that's what he's been doing. You see, he was a lawyer, and he was like, man, I battle, I protect, I argue against the law, and that's what I do. And I'm hearing about, potentially he's saying this, I'm hearing about this guy named Jesus. Jesus is talking about grace, he's talking about forgiving sins, but he's not talking about the law. Oh, and I'm about to battle him. That's what the lawyer is saying. And so we're going to pick it up here in 25. Before we get to the Good Samaritan parable, it says this: on one occasion, an expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. And he said, teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life? Jesus responded. Of course, Jesus responds with a question. He's not stumped by this. He says, well, what is it written in the law? He replied, because he knew who he was and he knew what he was trying to do. What is written in the law? He replied, how do you read it? And then he answered, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. You have answered correctly, Jesus replied. Do this and you will live. But he wanted to justify himself, so he asked Jesus, who is my neighbor? Who's my neighbor? So again, this battle's happening, and he's thinking one or two things. One, he's probably thinking, well, I think I have the first one down, but do I really have to love everybody? Like, who's my neighbor? Or maybe he's like, I don't have the first one down. Maybe I have the second one down. Tell me who my neighbor is. Is my neighbor the people in my cul-de-sac? Is my neighbor my friends? Is my neighbor people that don't hate on me? Is that who my neighbor is? And then this is where Jesus responds with the parable. You guys ready to go? All right. So here's where Jesus responds. You guys, you with me? You're a little quiet. You guys with me? All right, there we go. All right, so he said this. Jesus said, a man who was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he was attacked by robbers. They stripped him of his clothes. They beat him. They went away, leaving him half dead. And a priest happened to be going down the same road. And when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. So too, a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, he passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, somebody say Samaritan, A Samaritan was traveling and came where the man was. And when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him. He bandaged his wounds. He was pouring oil and wine. So again, he's trying to put Neosporin, hydroperoxide. He's trying to clean him up. He does all that. Then he put him on his animal, on his donkey. He brought him to the inn and took care of him. Then the next day, he took out 2 denarii and gave it to the innkeeper. Look after him, he said. And when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense you may have. I want to just make sure we're getting this. I'm going to break this down. But again, 2 denarii, that's like 2 days' wages. And if you break that down to how much that would have been, that would have been 2 months of this inn, 2 months in the hotel. So this guy's in bad shape. And he says, even after that, I will reimburse you any extra expense you may have. So then he asked the question, which one of these do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of the robber? And the expert of the law replied, the one who had mercy on him. Jesus told him, go and do likewise. Let me pray. Heavenly Father, I thank you so much for your word. I thank you for this opportunity that we get to hear it. My prayer is that you will speak through it. It's in Christ's name. Everyone said, amen, amen. So again, we're going to dive in and we're going to jump into this and break this down. And so I always love when we talk about a parable, we're reading or we hear a story, we have to put ourselves in it. So I want to try to there's so much more to this than what I'm going to have a chance to, but I want to try to break down some of this and try to put you in the story if I can. So again, when we talk about the road from Jerusalem to Jericho, when he's talking about going there, this is like 17 miles. This is a long road. This isn't just any road, but everybody knew about this road. Okay, so earlier I asked the question if anybody's from Oklahoma, and nobody is. But if you ever visit Oklahoma, I got to tell you, hopefully you're keeping notes on this. No, this isn't, but you may want to. There's this place you have to go if you're ever in Oklahoma. It's called Bobo's Chicken, all right? You have to go to Bobo's Chicken. I know it sounds crazy. You're like, this guy's talking about head, shoulders, knees, and toes. Bobo's Chicken. Maybe he should be in mix or something. I don't know what he's talking about. But I'm telling you, it is great. It has smoked chicken, fried chicken. They put honey on it. It's the best thing you've ever heard or had. I'm telling you. But here's the other part you need to know. It is on Northeast 23rd and Hood Street. I kid you not. The name of the street it's on is Hood Street. It's only open Friday and Saturday night from 7 p.m. to 2 p.m. The reason, 2 a.m. So here's the reason why I tell you that. Is that if you tell someone in Oklahoma, I am going to Bobo's Chicken, and you go at 1 a.m., they're going to be like, yo, are you going by yourself? I hope you got somebody with you, or maybe you should go at 7 p.m. and not wait that long. That's what they would say. And as we're talking about this story, how many of you know maybe an area in your community that it's like it is not a great area? It's not a great area. You know what I'm talking about? Like the 23rd and Hood Street. You guys got that over there in Indiana. I know what I'm talking about, right? So this street, they're thinking, okay, everybody's putting themselves in this story, and they're like, man, that's a tough road. And then they hear about this man being robbed. And so again, not surprised that he's being robbed. It says they stripped him of his clothes, they beat him and went away, leaving him half dead. So he's sitting there, but here's the good news, right? A priest happens to go by. A priest shows compassion. A priest is going to be there. That's the person that's going to save the day, but instead the priest goes by, and then the Levite goes by. You may be saying, what is a Levite? A Levite is like an associate there. So it could be the worship pastor or whatever it is. Both of them go by, but here's the part that you need to know about this road, is that you don't just go by on this road. They've done studies, and this road was not this big road like this gym. It was a short road, and he had to walk almost like by them, know that they were there. Here's how I would break it down. I know I'm an NBA guy, and we talk about that, but one of the best point guards of all time is Allen Iverson. Anybody with me out there? Okay. All right. So there is this clip that's long time ago, probably before any of y'all were born, that I want to show you this is what it looks like when they were probably going over the road. Anyone remember the Allen Iverson shot in the finals? All right, let me refresh you, give you some history real quick. So boom, yeah, that looks a little bit like me. I know what you're talking about. Yep. No. Boom. To step over like that. All right, you guys get it? You need another angle? Okay, we'll give you another angle of it. So imagine they're not just walking by him, it's like this, okay? And if I could put this in today's terms, what I think that would look like is I believe the priest or the Levite would probably have their phone out like this. How many of us walk like this? We walk with our phones down. Oh, don't act like this isn't you. I got some video of you guys actually doing this. You wanna see? It's not of you, but I do have some video. And tell me this doesn't surprise you. Okay, you got. Yep. Up. Okay. Yep. Boom, right there. Yep. So I actually know this person. She is. We just hired her as our youth pastor. She's showing resilience right there. You see what I'm saying? And I'm gonna come back to that other clip here in a second, but this is what I imagine this is happening. They're just walking by, and that's what I think that we would do here. Let me continue on before I break this down. So again, I believe they're walking by just like that, but what happens? The Samaritan stops, and you have to realize that as they're telling this story, I guarantee or I believe that every jaw is like, what? You got to understand, as I talk about those battles, the battle early on, this is a real battle. You see, there was a battle with the Samaritans. And this battle was like, it went way back. It was a deep battle. Matter of fact, the chapter before that, you see, Jesus was trying to go stay in the Samaritan village. And they were like, oh, Jesus, you're going to come down here? No, we don't have any rooms for you. And the beef went so far back that the disciples' response wasn't like, oh, man. It was, hey, Jesus, you want us to, like, destroy that place? You want us just to blow it up? I always wonder, like, Jesus, like, if he ever messed with people, he'd say, like, you mean, like, angels come in? Yeah, like, angels come in, like Top Gun, and blow it up. They're like, what's Top Gun? Oh, don't worry about it. It's later on. So, but, of course, Jesus says, no, I don't want you to destroy them. But that was the type of beef that was happening. So when he said the Samaritan is there, you got to understand and put yourself in the story. They're like, no, this is like the least likely person to not only come there and stop, but then also what did the Samaritan do? He saw him. He took pity. He went to him. He bandaged him up. He cleaned him up. Then he put him on his donkey. Then he went to the inn. Then he gave him the money, just like we talked about. Then he said, I will come back and reimburse you. He goes above and beyond. And here's another part that I believe is in there. The reason why it was like the Samaritan's the least likely. Like, why would the Samaritan do that? The expert didn't even want to say Samaritan. He said the one. He didn't say the Samaritan. When he asked which one of the three, he said the one who had mercy on him. And Jesus said, go and do likewise. So again, as I've continued to read this story, and hopefully you've been able to put yourself in that, I really want you to put yourself in this story right now and know that God is going to do something in your story and your journey. And here's what I mean. The first thing that we have to do is that we have to get our head up. We have to get our heads up. Again, I just showed you about us being in our phones, and I believe that's what a lot of times we're just distracted. We're distracted in ourselves. We're distracted on what we're doing. I read something earlier today, and it said the average person actually gets their phone out and touches their phone 2,600 times a day. 2,600 times a day, that's us. And we have to get our head up. Matter of fact, speaking of getting your head up and looking around, there's something that happened at Dodgeball earlier today. I'm not sure who this is, but you guys may be able to help me out. So this person didn't have their head up in the white. Boom. Oh, you see that? Let's go ahead and rewind that one more time. So kind of keep your head on a swivel there. Who is that? That's you right there? Man, I don't know if you should be telling us or you should be like, yeah. So right there. All right. So I hope you remember that we have to get our heads up. As Christians, when you go home as believers, you're saying, I want to broadcast the message of Jesus. You have to have your head up. You have to be focused. You have to say, God, maybe you're saying, you know what? I'm going to actually put my phone up. I'm going to get my eyes up and say, God, please help me see the people I need to see. Please help me have the ears that you have and let me hear. Let me be a light to somebody else. Because here's what I'm telling you is that there's so many times that I get it wrong, and I believe that we get it wrong as I remember being in your shoes and I remember being in your seat. Let me tell you an opportunity. So I told you before that I was one of the chaplains for Oklahoma City Thunder, and I've been doing that. And I remember one specific time that I was really frustrated that I was there late. You see, an hour before every game, they're there. And the players don't have to be there. But if they're there, I mean, I want to make sure that I'm there, I'm ready to go. But I was stuck in traffic. And so I was just like, doing it as quick walk as I can. I was trying to get down to chapel. I was trying to get there. I was moving. I was looking at my phone, checking the time, doing everything I could. And I got down the chapel. I finally got there, and nobody showed up. I was like, what? Where's everybody at? And I remember praying, God, why won't you send anyone for me to minister to? And in that moment, I remembered what someone said, and it was so clear. It was almost like God said this. I did. You passed by about 20 of them on the way here. And I would ask you that question. How many people are you passing by? How many people you're passing by in your school? How many people are you passing by in the cafeteria? How many people are you passing by because maybe you're not on your phone, but you're so consumed with yourself, you're so consumed with what you're doing that you're missing that. And that's exactly what happened with the priest. That's exactly what happened with the Levite. They were missing out on the opportunity. I've heard this. I heard it said like this. Dr. King said it like this. He said this. He said, what happens if he said, well, what would have happened if you stopped? Like that was like a pretty tough road to stop on. What would happen if you stopped? And the question that we have to ask ourselves is, what happens to that person if I don't? What happens to my community if I don't have my head up? What if I don't take notice? What happens to the people in my school if I'm not the one that's doing it? And I know you may be saying, well, how am I supposed to reach my entire school? The quote that I want you to write down is that you do for one what you wish you could do for many. What you wish you could do for so many, you say, I'm going to do for one. Jesus, give me the opportunity to love one person today. Give me an opportunity to have my head up and to see people like you see them, to love people like you do, and to take notice. Get our heads up. The second thought is that we have to shoulder the weight. We have to shoulder the weight. Earlier, your youth pastors and leaders, they stood up, and I'm telling you what, there's a weight that they have that you may never know. But our jobs, if I could go back to a student, man, there's more weight that I would have shouldered. I would have said, you know what, man, I want to invite. I want to get the word out. I don't want to just show up to youth ministry on a Wednesday night and expect to be a consumer, but I want to say, you know what, I brought somebody, or how can I serve, or how can I do that? And that's what the Good Samaritan did right here. He took pity on him. He took notice. He had compassion. And I believe that's what we need to do. And you may hear the word compassion and maybe thinking, okay, well, the word compassion kind of seems like a soft word. But the word compassion, if you break it down in Greek, it means to be moved so deeply by something that you feel it in the pit of your stomach. How good are you at putting yourself in other people's shoes? How good are you at doing that? Of hearing, you know what? Man, I'm with you. Or are we so entitled that we just think, you know what? And again, maybe the justification for the priest and the Levite is maybe that person put themselves in that situation. But we have to realize the very things that we take for granted, somebody else is praying for. I'll give you an example. How many of you, when you leave here, you're going to have a roof over your head? Okay. How many here, when you leave here, you're going to know there's going to be food somewhere in the house, right? How many of here, when you leave, you're going to go to a place that has running water, you'll be able to take a shower? Now, some of y'all, I don't know if y'all like taking a shower in the last week, but I'm just saying, no. But so often, right, we take these things for granted, and we don't ever put ourselves in a shoe that's like, what if that was me? What if I didn't have a roof over my head? What if I didn't have food on my table? What if I didn't have these certain things? What if that was me? How good at we are putting ourselves in other people's shoes. Sometimes it's hard because maybe we're entitled, or sometimes it's hard because we've been through some difficult things, some hard things in our life. I know for me, I didn't grow up, I didn't have it easy. At the age of 3, my dad left. My mom and my older brother walked out, and obviously I didn't remember much of it at 3, but I remember in middle school and high school being just so frustrated and mad. So when someone says they lost something, oh, I lost my whatever, I lost my headphones, I'm like, man, you don't know what it's like to lose something. I didn't say that, but I walked around like that. Or some of y'all may know my story. At the age of 15, my brother was shot and killed. And there's not a day that doesn't go by that I don't miss him. And it was just a terrible time for me, for my mom, and I mean, there's still pain. There will always be pain. But I can't allow that pain to stop me from putting myself in someone else's shoes. Somebody's going through something difficult. I can't keep comparing that because that's not what Jesus did to us. Jesus paid the ultimate price for each and every one of us. He gave his life for us. Imagine Jesus being like, well, you know what I did? But instead, he has compassion. And that's the same thing that we need to have. We need to shoulder the weight. And the last thought is that we need to put our feet into action. It's time to put our feet, it's time not just to talk about it, but to be about it, to put our feet into action. Here's what I mean. Because I believe we know how to do this. We know how to do this really, really well. How many of you play pickleball? Play pickleball, okay? How many of you are like pickleball, a little like nerdy pickleball? Like, you know what I'm talking about? Like, you're committed. You're like, nah, I'll just play. Okay. So there was this thing back in my day that I would go bowling. So bowling was like the thing, kind of like I think pickleball is right now, where you'd be like, oh, you go bowling? Like, that's just different. Like, I grew up, I played college football, I played basketball, never went bowling. We're in college, our college group says, yo, let's go bowling. And I'm like, okay, I really have never done that, but that's fine. We're like, you're athletic, you got it, you can do it. And I'm like, okay, let's try it. So I do it, and I'm terrible, y'all. Like extreme. You know when like people laugh at you, you're so bad? They stopped laughing, and it started just like, man, we just feel sorry for you, man. You want to go grab us some nachos or something, man? Like, you got to stop. Like, that's how bad I was. Like, the ball's going in the other lane, just going straight to the gutter. It's terrible. And I was like, yo, like, I'm tired of y'all making fun of me. I'm going to get better at this. And they're like, yeah, right. And I kid you not, the very next day I went, I was like, yo, I'm going. It was like a silver sneaker tournament. And I was like, I'm jumping in. I don't even know what that is. I jump in. I'm like, I want to learn. I'm watching YouTube videos. I'm learning. I'm getting better. I'm doing whatever I can. I'm working at the time. I'm putting money into this. I buy a bowling ball. I buy the shoes. I got everything. I keep going back every single day, week after week. And then it was like probably a month later. They're like, you want to go bowling again, right? And I'm like, I think I'll go. You already know what happened. Man, I should have bet some money that day, right? Man, they're like, what? Boom, boom, boom. And I was like, yeah, this ain't going to happen on my watch. Y'all ain't going to make fun of me. And as I think about that story, I think about how good we are at making sure that's us, but do we love our neighbors the same way? That we say, you know what, not on my watch. Man, I know that you're hurting, but not on my watch. I'm gonna put time in. Man, I don't know that thing you're going through, but I'm gonna do some research, and we're gonna sit down. We're gonna read God's word together. You know what? I'm gonna put money into that. I'm gonna put money. You know what? You don't have a lunch. I'm gonna buy your lunch today. Let's have a conversation. You know what? I want to give to my church. I want to give to CIY. I want to give. I want to do whatever I can because not on my watch. I want to make sure that I'm doing whatever I can to make sure that you're set up for success. And not in something as small as bowling, but in life and what God has called you to do. That's what I want to do. And if we talk about being God's hands and feet, man, I think, how many of y'all got some pretty beat up feet? You know what I mean? Or you're sitting next to someone with some pretty beat up feet. You can go ahead and do that. Look at their feet. No, I'm just kidding. Don't do that. That's messed up. Love your neighbor. Love your neighbor. Okay. All right. Follow me, follow me, follow me. Real quick. I'm almost done. Real quick. Here's the point that I'm trying to make. Is that as we talk about our feet, I remember talking to someone, it's a friend of mine, her name is Julie. She runs marathons every year. And she said this, how do you know someone's a true runner? That means, she said, if you haven't lost a toenail, you're not a true runner. It's like, man. But as I think about being the hands and feet of Christ, and some of us, our walk and what it looks like is really comfortable. It's really comfortable. It looks like we've been sitting down with our feet up, pedicure. But have we been out there? Have we been taking risk? Have we been taking action? Have we been doing the things that are necessary? Because if we don't do it, who will? That's why I say it's not that we have to go home. We get to go home. So again, as I was breaking this down and I was thinking about that, and we got to take action, and then I started thinking and it was like, okay, get your head up, head. Shoulder the weight, shoulders, feet, toes, okay? Head, shoulders, feet. Head, shoulders, feet. Head, shoulders, feet. Head, I'm missing something. Where am I? Knees. So I did that on purpose, okay? Just so you know. It'd be like, man, is he really? Thank you. The reason why I say that is as I was preparing this, I actually did forget that. As I was like, okay, maybe this goes here, and I forgot it. And I tell you what, it hit me. It was almost like God said, how often do we forget that? That we forget to hit our knees. That we forget it should start there. As I think about the Good Samaritan, I think, how do you do that? How do I live that out? How do I live out that opportunity? How do I not have any fear? Is because I remember who my Creator is. I remember the one who created everything and holds everything in his hands, knows me by name. How do I trust in him with my resources, just like the Good Samaritan is? I realize that everything belonged to him in the first place. I hit my knees every morning. How do I say, God, show me what to do? How do I take action? I remember that he has a plan and a purpose for my life, and he would not give me a plan and purpose he has not prepared me for. How do I come to CIY and say, you know what? I may mess up in my message, but Lord, I know you can speak through me. It's because greater who is in us, who is in the world. And that's the same thing for each and every one of you. Is that maybe you forgot who he is. That maybe you forgot that full of grace he came to this fateless terrain where his aim was to reign in spite of his name being defamed by the disdaining behavior of the rooters who exchanged a relationship with the Creator. There was no one greater. He came as a Savior. His name is Jesus. See? He's the exact lender of life. He is the way and the truth to the life to the lightless, a light to all on the broad road of darkness, the only one in history to proficiently master righteousness. Hear me when I say this. There is no one higher. There is no one greater. There is no one like our God. His name is Jesus. And what he's called us to do is proclaim and broadcast his name. Do we trust in him? Do we trust in him? Or just like this man, did we forget it's not about who we are, it's about whose we are. I'm going to say it again. It's not about who we are. He was making it about him, and he was saying, what do I got to do to get to heaven? And our goal in life is not just for us to get to heaven, but to bring heaven to earth, to take as many people as we can with us to heaven.
Christ is my firm foundation.
So that's our foundation. And maybe many of you forgot
The rock on which
what he says about you. That it's not about how good you are, but how good he is.
I've never
That is
been
why
more glad.
we can lead
I put
and
my
trust like the Good
faith
Samaritan.
in Jesus.
And imagining all the people that we can reach.
He's never let me down.
That CIY would be like the inn.
Faithful through generations.
They couldn't even fit all the people that we would say, God, you're going to use us to reach.
Why would he fail now?
Let me remind you
He won't.
who he says he is in you.
He won't.
Ephesians 2:10, I am God's workmanship created to produce good works.
He won't fail.
John 1:12, I am a child of God. Romans 3:23,
He won't
I am justified and redeemed. Romans 15:7, I've been accepted in Christ. 1 Thessalonians 1:4, God loves me, has chosen me. Philippians 4:19, God supplies my needs. 1 John 5:18, the evil one cannot harm me. Ephesians 3:12 says the boldness and confidence exceeds everything. And Matthew 5:13 says that we are the salt and the earth. Is anyone excited for what God stands ready to do through each and every one of us?
So why would he fail now?
Let's stand and declare this in this place.
He won't.